Yo, how's it going? So I wanted to go ahead and do my version of a yearly recap. So, Final Fantasy TCG in 2022, we had 6 releases. We had the FF10 Custom Starter Set, the Emissaries of Light, the Cecil and Golbez Starter Deck, the Rebellion's Call, Noctis vs. Arden, and Resurgence of Power. So I'm going to have my awards for the best and worst cards to come out of all of these sets this year. Should be a lot of fun. Just basically, it's a good excuse to kind of look at like all the cards that came out this year and have some fun with them. So, without any further ado, best core set. Best core set goes to Resurgence of Power. I think this is the best core set of the year. I think Rebellion's Call was not great. I think it's a set that definitely is going to struggle to hold value because the legends, there's only it's got worse legends than most of the others, and the full arts in the set just are not going to carry it long term. I think Resurgence of Power, if you're a TCG investor and you can get this sealed, hold on to it sealed because holy cow. I think the cards inside are pretty solid too. Could maybe argue that Emissaries was a more impactful set card-wise, but it's pretty close. I think Resurgence really does shake up the metagame quite a bit. So I think even from a playability perspective, Resurgence is a really good set. Best Preconstructed deck. I'm going to go with the FF10 Custom Starter Set. You can make a case for Noctis versus Arden because the Retainer package is so good. But this set's been around longer, and it's got a couple of tops to its name. I also think this is just the best design for a starter set. Kind of, you get the starter deck plus a bunch of staple reprint singles. Just really, really well done product. A plus, good job. Most surprising card. For me, it's Alfino. This card did not read as good as it actually is. The 4 CP 7K draw 2 discard 1 seems kind of but it's good enough. And that damage 5 is just legitimately game winning, depending on the scenario. Just really cool card. Have loved seeing it. It's ended up in a lot more decks than I thought he would as a one of, which for a rare, that's everything you could ever want. Most disappointing, the Pinello Dancer, the Opus 17 hero. This card, every time I've tried to make this work, it's never really felt great. I just feel like Dancers as an archetype is really confused because the best card's in Lightning, and then the second best card is in Water, and then it wants to be a Wind deck as well. The Wind standard units are often showing up as Dancers now, and it's a confused mess that just never seems to work. And everything Pinello does, Luso does better. She's a weird storm payload, but she doesn't do anything on entry. So if she's threatening, your opponent can kill her before you try to go to the end phase. But it's so hard to make her threatening because you need multiple Dancers to get 4K plus 4 casts, and it just never really feels like it's gonna line up outside of Steve D had a really interesting deck that was focused around her with Univalifor and stuff, and it was cute and an interesting idea, but this card just never spoke to me, despite the fact I really wanted it to be good. I really want to play a fun, competent Dancers deck, and nothing really is there yet with it. Outside of the fact that Maya Lilith as a duo is really strong. And with that, we go to the worst cards of 2022. Unfortunately, there are a lot of cards released. Not all of them can be good. So the worst legend of the year, Ice Clouded Darkness. This card sucks. I've never seen it resolve. I've never been scared of this card. I think everything this card does is done better by other cards. And yeah, just not a good card. I don't know what they were thinking. Worst hero. Generally, most of the heroes were fine and had some playability, but I gave it to Squall from this set. I will say, this is really good in Limited, at least. He's a very strong card there, but in Constructed, if you're playing a Category 8 deck, there's so many good Squalls. This card feels like it was ripped out of Opus 9 or Opus 10. honorable mention to Formelda, which is a card I don't think I've ever seen actual like in anybody's deck. But like she is good on higher damage, so maybe there's like some weird self-damage deck she'll eventually be good in, but so I could see her seeing play in the future. This Squall, I can't imagine ever seeing play in a top tier deck. So I'm gonna put him in there. Since he's also a light card, so you also like have to dedicate your light slot to him. So for combination name and like the qualities on the card, I think he's the worst hero in the last three sets. Worst rare, Kalmia. Say hello to a 3 CP vanilla backup. This card does nothing. It prevents Kadaj and it prevents power reduction. Both of the main arguments for this card working don't work. It doesn't stop Mist Dragon because Mist Dragon doesn't choose. It doesn't stop Leviathan because Leviathan just bounces and is happy to have a 3 CP backup that doesn't do anything bounced back to the hand. This card sucks. If there's a side deck, you could maybe like see a world where like Kamiya Minwu is like a real threat because then they can't reduce you and they can't do damage to you. That's less than your power, but like, yeah, that's not ever a thing we're actually going to be scared about. So, worst cycle. The heroic standard units from Rebellion's Call. The Samurai is good. Red Mage has seen like a smattering of play here and there. And I think like the Scholar could like maybe be good if like Turbo Discard ever comes back as like a power crept version of like the Opus 1 Sarah. But when your comparison is a card from Opus 1, you're really not setting the bar very high. And like that Samurai, if it ever got like Amaterasu, you'd be paying 5 CP for a card to just die. The damage 3 effects on these like are all just like kind of awkward. Mega anti shoutouts to the 3 CP Dancer of the cycle because holy cow, what a terrible card. You can pay 3 CP and then another win CP to activate 3 characters. Or you could play Yuna and activate all of your backups. Or Cerberus and activate all of your backups. Or draw a card if that's better. These cards just, they feel confused. They feel like they would be like decent rares or like pack filler, but like as actual heroes, which is like the slot in your pack that you want to have a good playable card, none of these really feel strong enough to see play. Like Baron Guardsman could like remove every card in your opponent's breakstone from the game on entry, and I still don't know how much play he would see. Instead, it's like, no, you choose a card type and you get just those cards. Like, ugh. Yeah, like Red Mage and Samurai are the most playable of them, and even then, I struggle to see decks they would really fit in well in. Worst art. This is a legend. They put FF11 screenshot art on a legend. Why? I don't know. We had great Mobius art that we wasted on an Opus 14 hero. And that Opus 14 hero has seen, basically no play whatsoever. This card is fantastic. I wish it just looked better. And actually, like, it almost like cycles around where it's like it's so bad it's good. Like it's like just derpy enough that like I kind of like it in foil. But there are so many things they should have done with this card instead. Which brings us to the worst cards of the year. I kind of pulled 3 of them. I was kind of looking for a couple things. Like there are cards that are like kind of meant to be like pack filler. Cards that'll do interesting things in limited, or like like every limited deck needs some form of removal, so on and so forth. So I went for cards that I didn't think had play in limited, and then definitely have no play in standard. These are the worst 3 cards of the year in my opinion. I picked 1 from each set. So the Gargoyle in Opus 3 just has too narrow a limit, like a use case. Like technically breaking a forward of cost 5 or more is like good, but it's so specific. Like when it's good, it would be good, but when it's not good, you're just kind of wasting a slot in your deck for a card that's going to do nothing so often. So I can't imagine this ever seeing play, and it didn't seem you couldn't play it unlimited even because you didn't know your opponent was going to ever put a cost 5 or higher forward onto the field. This Ranger, same thing. There's so few targets for it, even limited, and like we're never that scared of a one cost forward or monster to where we'd want to dedicate deck space to this. Like maybe if it could hit a backup of cost 1, it would be interesting. And I don't even think that would have been overpowered. Like, it just would have actually been able to have a target against some decks. Lastly, Ewin. I'm not going to lie. If I could give my opponent Ewin and have them continuously put this card on top of their deck every turn, I would give them it and let them do it. Like, they're going to waste their card draw and 1 CP every turn to play this card. I am more than okay with that. I would give my opponent this card if I could. That's how bad I think this card is. Anyways, now that we've gotten the worst cards of the year out of the way, it's time for the best. So we're going to start off with the best cycle. Opus 16 Heroic Monsters. Every single one of these cards is good. Every single one of them has seen play. Hades and Spectral Keeper are probably the worst of the two. But like Spectral Keeper is still very good, especially in aggro decks. And Hades is just a little specific at times, but like there's also a lot of Earth decks that like to run a large number of backups. It pairs very well with Robel Akbel. Like there's a lot of cool things in the card, even if it is the worst of them. And the good cards, like Tros basically spawned a deck by himself. Atomos is such a meta-defining threat that like I think most decks are packing Monster Hate, partly for Atomos and probably for Scale Toad. Jin is such a cool card. And then Biblos is also just really, really good. These cards are insanely powerful. Best fire card of the year. We're going to go with the Opus 16 Squall Legend. I think this is the most applicable card. This is one of the cards that's the scariest when he comes down in the right situation. And if I could pick any card to not have played against me in the situation where it's good, it's probably this card, where it's 2 points of damage and a board wipe sometimes, if in the like wrong situations. And even when he's not, he's almost always a threat. Like a 4K cleave is really scary. A second 4K cleave, if he's blocked, means he kind of like almost functions as a board wipe if your opponent has to block him. He gets haste on a pretty easy condition. Like, just a really powerful, cool card. Easily, I think, the best fire card of the last 3 sets. Like, it says a lot that I've been trying to make the new Ferris work, and every time I have that Ferris in hand, I go, it just doesn't quite do what I want, and if I had Squall, it would work. So, like, I think that says a lot when I'm testing other cards, and every time I do, the first thing that comes to mind is how much more I'd rather have Squall. Best ice card, no question, it's Laswell. This card basically revolutionized ice by himself. He made Charlotte become one of the best ice cards by himself. This is the best going second card in the game, because generally what people do is they'll play a backup that searches another backup, and you lock that first backup down, you threaten a discard. Just, this card does everything. It's ludicrously powerful, and it makes every Laswell before, and technically since, just kind of laughable in comparison. The fact this card is so rare, despite the fact that it's, like, this card could have been a legend, and it would have been just as, like, overwhelming. I'm scared what a hero or legend version of this card would have actually been. Best win card. I am so ready to eat crow on this one. It's Yuffie. I think there's an argument for Atomos and Cerberus and Luso and Zidane. But to me, like, a lot of those cards, like, don't function as a self-contained package the way Yuffie does. There are decks that I have built where the name of the deck is Yuffie. This card is so obnoxious and so difficult to deal with. She snuck up on me. I did not think this card was going to be as good as it is, and it scares me because if she is a problem, they cannot ban this card due to the fact that it's the most expensive card in the entire damn game. Just wow, what a ridiculous card this is. Best Earth card. I went with Arciela. I think this is the card that revolutionized Earth's place in the game. She's break zone hate. She's a power bomb. She's protection. She says you win combat constantly. Just, I think Steve put it best, but RCLO went from having no cards in the game to having two of the best cards in the game. And now I just want to know who this character is as someone that didn't play 11, because wow, she's gotten incredible cards in the last two sets. Best Lightning card, I went with Man in Black. You can make an argument for X Death here, but I think Man in Black is the real reason to be in Lightning these days. Just absolute powerhouse of a card. Admittedly, I think he's a little bit overrated by some in the community. I wouldn't like cram him in everything the way Steve D tends to, but even with that in mind, he's so good when he's good. Best water card, kind of a tough one. I went with Glaciella. Was that? I think a lot of people sleep on just how good Glaciella is as a standalone card. So say that you don't even play the Oracle backups, right? Like no Crystal Gen in the game outside of Glaciella. If you compare her to the standard units that I was talking about that are like I said disappointed me, the only time you can amot Glaciella is on entry, at which point they're amoting you for paying 3 CP. If they don't amot that, but they're scared of the removal, you can do it at any time after that. And you pay 2 CP to do essentially 8k or more. Like, you just pick a card and it dies if it dies to damage. I don't think any card in the game is as threatening if she lives as this card. As far as like a quick effect, remove something your opponent is doing. Like, it's literally just a discarded water card in hand, something dies as long as you have a crystal, and she generates a crystal when she enters. Like, wow. She's so good, I don't think you care about the fact that she could pay for other specials. The only one that really matters to me most of the time is Ramada, because she gives water decks damage pressure that they like sorely need, like the ability to rush down against wind specifically. Just crazy card. People sleep on this card as just a generic good stuff water card, and I don't know why. Like, she's that good that, like, if you're in water, you should probably run a couple copies of this card, almost regardless of any other Crystal Gen in the deck whatsoever. Best Light and Dark was an interesting one. I think most of them are decently powerful, but I went with the starter Tidus. I think this is maybe a bit of an iffy choice, given that I think Venera Fens might see more play, but I think Tidus is like the perfect archetypal card. Becoming free, like it's almost like a game when you play Guardians to say how many times can I bounce Tidus and replay him to search out copies of Jekt. And I think that like the power bump is like shockingly relevant. Like, making everybody a 2k bigger just means that Guardians actually has like damage pressure and like power pressure to win combat. And honestly, the art looks really good on this card, especially in full art. So Tidus gets the nod for me for best light dark. Best multi-elements, I gotta go with Noctis. This card is crazy. It has an EX burst for no reason. It's below curve, but because it searches another card, it's like a 2 CP 7k as long as you're running other retainers. And you should be on other retainers if you're playing Noctis. And then just generically, anytime a forward enters your field and the colors punch something, which ignores like protection from damage. Just wow, what a card. And they don't even punch back like they do with a lot of effects. Like, you're not putting your own forward at risk to do that. Like, Noctis is one of the most threatening cards in the game for just sitting there and doing nothing. And if your opponent removes them, you just very happily play the next one in your hand off of the EX burst. Best monster, I went with Atomos. Atomos, I think, was arguably a mistake. And not just because they didn't properly remove the the shading on the card. So if you look really closely, actually I think my cursor's here. Under the 2, right here, there's a line where they didn't properly crop the card from the original artwork. But it doesn't matter. This card is so ludicrous, and like, to me, I know people say like wind mirrors come down to who gets Althea down first. Gosh, sound like a broken record there that can't talk. I think it comes down to who sticks the Atomos. And for that reason, I'm going to put him as my best monster of the year. Very, very close shoutouts to Tros, though. I think Tros is a crazy good card. And Melusine as well is very strong. Best summon of the year, I went with the 4CP Bahamut from Opus 17. The sheer amount of damage this card does is laughable. 2CP 5k, or 2 5ks to 2 forwards, 7k to one, 3k to another. This card just skews damage math in a way that we just haven't seen. And like, I remember the first time I read the damage 5 effect, I was like, oh yeah, no big deal. And then I went, wait, 15k, wow. So it's a 7k and an 8k. Like, this card can remove 7 CP worth of forwards if you're hitting on curve for 4 CP. There's just nothing that does what this card does as far as like sheer removal in fire. Just such a good card. And even more than that, if you need to like really remove something big, it kills a 10k by itself because it's choose up to 2 forwards. Yeah. Best backup. Unfortunately, Chocobo Sam. I don't think there's a lot to say about this. He's a 3 of in basically every win list. Goes and gets either Chocolate, Chocobo Summon, or Fat Chocobo, at which point the game is basically over. Best artwork of the year. This one's really obvious, guys. I mean, come on. It's clearly Chilinka. Now that everybody's, now that everybody's furiously typing and mad at me, first of all, I actually really like Chilinka. I think it's a cute card. But it's Lena. I do think it was a good year for art in the game in general. A couple of honorable mentions. The starter deck Rydia, Kryl, Ferris, and the Bartz, I think, are among the best. I think the Bartz is... It's not the best card in the game right now. I think it's like... It's a really fun cube card. But get that card in foil because, oh my god, is it gorgeous in foil. It's like the kind of card I would almost want to see in a full art. Not for playability's sake, but because it looks so damn good. Last but not least, we're going to go for my card of the year. And you might think, oh, it's one of the other cards from before. But my card of the year is Madame Edel. I think Edel and the release of Soiree is one of the few things that like really truly changed the way the game is played right now. This deck does everything, which is why you see so many top players continuously come back to this. It plays a mid-range game. It plays an aggro game. It'll be in a deck that runs 30 EX bursts. I have seen Wind Lightning Soiree before. Like, you can just do anything with this deck, and as long as you're playing like enough Soiree cards, it's probably fine. I've seen Wind Earth, Fire Earth, Water Earth, except Lightning Wind. You name it, this deck probably has run it at some point. Avalanche Soiree is a thing to give backup fodder for your Avalanche operatives. Just hilariously powerful deck. I didn't put her as my card of the year in Earth because I think she's a little more dependent on other cards in Arciela, and it kind of gave me a chance to talk about both. But I think if you're playing just one card from this year, it's Madame Edel, and I don't think it's all that close. So anyways, those are my picks. If there's anything I missed or anything that you disagree on, go ahead and feel free to let me know. And thanks for watching. Hope y'all are doing great, and Happy New Year.